Hello, I'm Jennifer Palayan, and we've been working through Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life, and we're on chapter 4. So the next section is entitled, It's Only a Belief You Learned as a Child. Some of the things we believe are positive and nourishing. These thoughts serve us well all of our lives, such as, look both ways before you cross the street. Other thoughts are very useful at the beginning, but as we grow older, they are no longer appropriate. Don't trust strangers may be good advice for a small child, but for an adult to continue this belief will only create isolation and loneliness. Why do we so seldom sit down and ask ourselves, is that really true? For instance, why do I believe things like, it's difficult for me to learn? Better questions to ask are, is it true for me now? Where did that belief come from? Do I still believe it because a first grade teacher told me that over and over? Would I be better off if I dropped that belief? Beliefs that boys don't cry and girls don't climb trees create men who hide their feelings and women who are afraid to be physical. If we were taught as a child that the world is a frightening place, then everything we hear that fits that belief, we will accept as true for us. The same is true for don't trust strangers, don't go out at night, or people cheat you. On the other hand, if we were taught early in life that the world is a safe place, then we would hold other beliefs. We could easily accept that love is everywhere, and people are so friendly, and I always have whatever I need. If you were taught as a child that it's all my fault, then you will walk around always feeling guilt no matter what happens. Your belief will turn you into someone who's always saying, I'm sorry. If you learn to believe as a child, I don't count, then this belief will always keep you at the end of the line wherever you are. Like my childhood experience about not getting any cake. Sometimes you will feel you're invisible when others fail to notice you. Did your childhood circumstances teach you to believe nobody loves me? Then you are sure to be lonely. Even when you bring a friend or relationship into your life, it will be short-lived. Did your family teach you there is not enough? Then I am sure you often feel as though the cupboard is bare, or you will find you just get by or are always in debt. I had a client who had been brought up in a household where they believed everything was wrong and could only get worse. His main joy in life was playing tennis, and then he hurt his knee. He went to every doctor he could find, and it only got worse. Finally, he could not play at all. Another person had been brought up as a preacher's son, and as a child he was taught that everybody else came first. The preacher's family always came last. Today he is wonderful at helping his clients get the best deal, yet he's usually in debt, with little pocket money. His belief still makes him last in line. What kind of beliefs did you learn as a child? Are any of these things that you learned positive or negative? Were you brought up that boys don't cry and girls don't climb trees? I'm not sure so much about that one, maybe if you're a little bit older. But what about the idea as a child that it's all my fault? Did you feel that growing up, perhaps if your parents separated or divorced, or if you had other siblings, whatever the circumstance, did you feel that it was all your fault? And are you an adult now who's always apologizing? I think I have that problem. I did feel that it was my fault that my father went to jail or that my family fell apart. I've talked about when I was 14, my father was put into prison, and my mother at the time was living homeless with an abusive boyfriend. And my father was put into prison because I finally told my story. I finally told that he had been abusing me since I was 4 years old. And, it just came to a point where I saw my life flash before my eyes. My father had never hit me growing up. He had hit my mother. I watched him abuse my mother physically, but growing up he never hit me physically. He just, well, not just, but he sexually molested and raped me since I was 4 years old. And we had an argument one night when I was 14, and he came to where I was at my friend's house, and he hit me across the face. And I became so scared because he had never hit me before. And I just saw my life flash before my eyes. I saw that I was becoming my mother, that I was going to grow up, and basically I didn't see any type of future. And so that secret that I had been keeping ever since I was 4 years old, I didn't understand the ramifications of telling that secret. I just knew that I had to get out of the house, that I did not want to go home that night. So the police were called, and I went to the police station, and they were asking me different questions, and I just ended up telling them my whole story growing up. I didn't know that telling my story was going to put my father in jail. I didn't know that telling my story was going to foreclose our home and all our stuff was going to be thrown out on the street. I didn't know that telling that story was going to put me in a foster home. I thought I would just tell my story, go back to my friend's house, somehow things would work out. So being still a minor, a 14-year-old, not knowing all these things, but knowing that I had to save my life, I did feel guilty. You know, I felt guilty for a long time because my father denied the story. I felt guilty that he was put into jail, that my mother was left trying to salvage whatever they had thrown out on the street, that we weren't able to keep the house. And even today, she may still mention that we were so close to paying the house off, and I felt guilty that somehow I wasn't able to control the fallout of what occurred, the fallout of losing the home and the family falling apart and all that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of children who go through that do feel responsible. And of course we have to learn that, it wasn't our fault, we weren't able to control it. But that just stemmed from reading this little sentence of, thinking it's all my fault. And so the point I was trying to make was that as an adult today, I do feel sometimes responsible for things that are not in my control. So I may say, oh, I'm sorry, or I apologize, and I had to work on that to not always be that person that's like, oh, I'm sorry, because a lot of times things aren't in our control. And if we can realize that, we can only be responsible for those things that we can control, which is usually ourselves, our own actions, our own feelings. And for the things that we can't control, yeah, it sucks, but don't beat yourself up over it. Just sometimes in life there's circumstances that you can't control, so you don't have to constantly be apologizing. That 14-year-old inside myself doesn't need to be constantly apologizing for every other person's mistakes and things that happen in life. It also talks about the belief I don't count, or perhaps nobody loves me, or there's not enough. That was another issue growing up, where there was a time where my father had quit his job. He had a good civil service job, and then the economic situation in the family became a lot worse, and we were getting like food from the food bank and all that kind of stuff. So this idea that there's not enough, I did find when I was an adult, sometimes when I'm running out of money or I don't know how I'm going to buy groceries, I start to freak out, like, oh no, I can't eat, I need to go buy something, and that's a hard to deal with. You always feel like you need to surround yourself with stuff or food, because of that kind of scarcity and that fear that there's not enough. But then I'm always finding, okay, that idea hasn't helped me. I'm in debt right now, I'm barely paying my bills, so maybe perhaps I should change that thought. So that's a very good section. Let me know some of your thoughts about that section. Were any of those thoughts that you had growing up, and how are they affecting you today in your adult life? And what are some positive thoughts that we can replace those negative thoughts with? Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you being on this journey with me, and I really encourage you to get this book, work through it with me. Let me know what you think. I'd like to hear your feedback. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel and like me on Facebook. I'll talk to you soon.